So I'm replacing my stock fuel tank from a 71 Bronco. It's a 13-gallon tank, and it's original tank from 71. So replacing that with this guy. This is an Aero tank, made in California. It's a 23-gallon tank, and it actually mounts to the frame, bolts to the frame of the Bronco with these ears here and here. So 4 places that it actually bolts to the frame. A little different than the stock tank in that it has the cinder on the top, and you have a feed, a 3/8 feed or turn line, which I'm not going to use. The 71 didn't have a fuel return. I guess they did that in case I converted it to EFI or something, or had a different setup. You got your filler hose and you got your vent hose, and these hoses, only the feed hose did come from Aero. I bought a new filler and a new vent from Bronco Graveyard. You can get the Aero tank. You can get the Aero tank with a welded on skid plate. That's what you see here. It's actually welded to the bottom of the gas tank, and there's no air gap there. That's what they say. So you know, there's no standoff. It's probably good if you're running trails, but it's definitely significantly thicker on the bottom. Not the prettiest tank in the world, but I wanted something made in the US, and this is one of the few options I could find made in the US. So it's Aero tanks. They're out of California, and they do have the they have been making these tanks for a while, and you get some decent instructions with it. Looking forward to putting it on. One other thing about the Aero tank is they can set it up for emission or non-emission, fuel injection or no fuel injection. They can set it up for body lifts, just whatever. So you have a lot of options there. So one of the things you'll need to do under the truck is take off the gas tank mounts. We got one here that I'm about to do, one here that's already off, and then there's another one on the back here. They have rubber pads on them. That's what the gas tank, the original gas tank, sits up against. You're also going to need to, if you have these seatbelt bolts, you'll need to reverse these so that they're flush, kind of like what you have here. These will end up hitting the Aero tank. They did not design it with the divots in it like the original tank. So I got the tank in. I pretty much had to bench press it to get it up in there. Have to feed your hoses through the driver's side frame rail, and then that'll kind of support the driver's side, and then you can lift up your passenger side. So the rear bolts, what I'm doing is, you see I've already drilled a hole in that flange, and it lines up with a oblong hole in the frame. So I'm just going to use some stiff wire. I have some household electrical wire that's solid, and it's going to feed it. It's going to feed it through the hole right there in the frame, and then down through the oblong hole. So there we go. Got it fed through, and I'll just pull the wire, and it'll release. Okay, so we got the tank on about midnight the other night, and I did anchor the rear pads here with the bolt through. That was the bolt they provided through the. There was actually a hole in the frame, so didn't have to drill that one. Just used a large washer on the head of the bolt, and I just fed it through here with a stiff wire. So got that on, and then got both sides in, and then realized that the front pads were 1.5 inches short from hitting this cross member. So they just goofed up in fabrication, or I got a weird Bronco, I don't know. I called them about it, and they said they had never seen that before. And so what I did is just got some aluminum 1.5 inch tall 3x3 square tubing as a spacer. So there's no access in this cross member. So the instructions actually say drill a 1.25 inch hole with 1.25 inch hole saw. I decided not to do that. I really would rather not put that size hole in my frame. So the center bolt here is just securing, the center one is just securing the aluminum to the steel. And then what I did is I got some number 14 size sheet metal screws, self-tapping, and they're 2.5 inches long, and I'm using those to anchor to the frame. So I've just started and it's working. So I'm gonna do 2 per side. So we'll have one here, and then I'll have a second one. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. You can kind of see there what I'm doing. And it works pretty good. So yeah, it'd be nicer if it was bolted. But I think 4 of these heavy duty screws will hold it. And these bolts are really holding most of the weight and are the most secure, so I think we'll be just fine. Little tip: if you have a Boykin Spaniel, don't leave the leads to your fuel tank sending unit dangling down over the weekend, because they will find anything they can to chew on, and he chewed my leads right off. So there's the evidence right there, but luckily I got enough room. Last thing is, I did get a replacement fuel hose from Bronco Graveyard. It's too short, so I'm gonna have to splice that in, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do that in a bit. These are the screws I'm using for the front pads. A 3/16 hole for those, and then drilling through the pad with a 1/4 inch, so that the screw just passes right through the pad without grabbing, but then it does grab into the frame.